Right. And then of course there's some side discussion about, okay, if you stop fortified wines, if you stop the MD 2020 or the night train or whatever, what about vermouth? What about the port, the cook, the sherry? So that would have to be up for discussion, because that's not generally favored by inebriates, but it's a fortified wine.
It sounds like you're suggesting a process where a dynamic process, basically a process where there's a list that's created either from our committee or from the police or something. Portland, you said, does it from the police, or Seattle does it from the police. You're suggesting we create a list. But you're suggesting basically what I'm hearing is a process where a list is generated of problem products that they agree to not sell. Is that basically what you're suggesting? Okay. And then it sounds like in that respect, the thing about a dynamic process is if we find that, it's like they're not, box wine isn't a problem, then we can take it off, or we find out that it is a problem, we can put it on the list. Is that accurate?
I don't think that. I think we should come up with, this is a very good list. This has the backing of the Seattle Police Department, Tacoma Police Department, everybody who's dealing with this.
Right, but what I'm asking is, are you suggesting that, okay, we set this and then give it to them and that's it, and they're in compliance and it's all over?
I mean, I would suggest that it be, as you say, a dynamic list, but based on some evidentiary thing, like one of the functions of the committee members might be to, like, it was mentioned that there's lots of bottles of Monarch. So,
right.
So as part of, in the next several months, we can see, well, okay, what bottles are we seeing?
Yeah,
Are
well,
we seeing? Are we seeing? Are there so have the offenders displaced to different products? And if so, then we might want to add that to the list.
Even if we just stuck with whatever downtown and Government Hill is doing, okay? They have wholesale said nothing smaller, no 200 milliliter bottles of anything. Right now the list is, well, of 200 milliliter we're not going to sell vodka, and we're not going to sell this, we're not going to sell that. And so this is, even if we just bring it up to on par with the downtown liquor store and the Government Hill liquor store, it's going to be a discussion.
See, Patty, I would suggest, though, that it's got to be both, that we need to address the kinds of sizes and scales, but then we would want to as well address specific products that aren't captured by that.
I agree.
And so that's the question Sharon is bringing up, is what is the process by which we would identify specific products?
Okay.
And her question was, would it be a good use of our time as a group to look around our neighborhood, identify the bottles that are there, so that we can specifically add the things that we know that they're using to the list, plus those considerations, size and scale and alcohol content. Point.
Well, the trend here is fortified wine, ice beers, beers, bottle cans that are this big and 12.5% alcohol. Malt beverages. And so that's generally the focus of this big list. But yes, I agree. What I'm doing is I did a lot of the legwork. We can use that as a launching point. What the process is.
I was not criticizing. I
great.
think this is fabulous. I'm saying that it's very likely that the inebriates they're going to displace to other products, and most likely to
it'll be
expensive
stuff
like our mouthwash, Lysol,
Aquanet.
so
there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
Linda,
my suggestion would be, I think it's a very good idea for people to walk around, when they're picking up the bottles and cans and all of that, to see what there is. But then I also think you need to make a list of that and funnel it to somebody who's going to do the research on that and say, okay, what do these all have in common? How much do these cost? How much alcohol content is in them? That kind of thing. And then, because it sounds like that list, basically, they did that in Seattle. And they compared all the things and what these things have in common. So there's going to be a commonality there.
There's 3 commonalities: low price, single-use can, and give you quite a buzz.
Right. So.
sorry, Anna first, and then
I was gonna. I don't know all of the process in Spinard that they.
A little louder, please.
Sorry, I don't know the full process that the Spinard Council has gone through in the last few years, but I guess I would caution the discussion of too much of brands. One, because like you said, they'll displace to other brands. And the other is, I don't know if there's a legality issue there, or if it would be kind of a, I guess I would just urge you guys to think about that too. Maybe if it is the size of the alcohol content that is more important. That's kind of the way that Spinarden is. And again, because there's always new brands coming out, distributors can find something and put them in. And also it might not help to establish a good relationship with the licensees that you're looking at. I mean, depending on what, because some people, there's multiple groups of people that buy these liquors, and so I would say if it's, if you're looking at a way to kind of come to a compromise, that might be a consideration.
That's a good, let me just answer this real quick here. That's a really good point, because one thing that the police found when they were trying to stop the distribution of these synthetic drugs was that they would name specific types, but then the manufacturers would just make new stuff, and then so they would look at what they could enforce and say, well, I know this is the thing, but it's not on the list. So they changed it so it's a lot broader to talk about the chemical components and so specific brands. Okay, Carrie.
Well, you guys might notice that I'm not the most patient man. I kind of I'm action-oriented, and it occurs to me that somebody else has already done the science on this. Somebody else has already collected a list. We have some models of other places that have already done that hard work, and I'm inclined to, to kind of not reinvent the wheel and allow us to kind of lean on a model that may be working on Government Hill or downtown, and kind of push forward on that, knowing that we have the biannual reviews, and we can write in, if we want, a 6-month assessment to any sort of plan that we're doing anyways. So, I'm inclined to kind of just accept some science that's already been done, maybe discuss it amongst ourselves. I happen to like beer, so I want to make sure that the
That
beers
your
that I
brand
like are
is
gonna stay
not
there.
on there, right?
But I think that there's a little bit. I think we can kind of accept some science as good, as some social science is good, and kind of move forward.
Social sciences.
Barely.
Chris, and then
Yeah, I just would add to that I agree that should be the starting point, but I think that we would be wise to review what they're doing and ask the question, is there something missing?
Sure.
And amend it to meet the specific needs of our neighborhood.
I'm just reluctant to have a 2-month data assessment of
I
bottles in the
Doesn't have to
neighborhood
take
and
2
months.
cataloging and.
I actually think that's
No.
an ongoing process.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that's not
Yep.
something for
Good.
this committee, that's actually an ongoing discussion. But really, if we look at those requirements and then just amend them to be specific to the issues we're seeing or holes that we see, I think we'd be wise as a starting point.
Great.
Basically, but I agree with going with the starting point, but exactly what Chris was saying, you're going to have a basis by which to review this. And one of the ways to review, and to target this specific neighborhood, what is being used in this specific neighborhood, is to do exactly that, to see what's happening, to see what they're using. And then that's when you're going to start seeing the new brands that are coming out, that kind of thing, to be able to report on that for the biennial review. But I really do believe that finding the categories that these things fit in are really important.
You could design a data collection instrument that
Right.
would be given to a whole bunch of people that, I found bottles at this area, and then this is what they were, and that gets
Yep.
centralized, and then.
And that's for the every 2-year review, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we would need stickers for the bottle tracking. But my question is, say that we start with this list, and say that this list is good for Seattle, but it's maybe not maybe it isn't quite right for Fairview. Are the package stores agreeable? Let's say that there's a new product, and suddenly that's all that we're picking up, but it's not on the list. Can we design a process where we come back to the package stores and say, look, we got a new one?
I think that the thing you need to be careful of here is, I looked at the list just really briefly, but Richard runs the liquor stores for us, and we looked through the list here together. Smirnoff vodka is on there. There's a lot of non-inebriates that buy Smirnoff vodka. It's the most popular vodka. I think it's the most popular vodka. Yeah, it's the most popular vodka, and I think that we we've got a store that serves
And
the needs of
Monarch,
many.
Monarch is not on the list.
Yeah, so I think the caution here is again with the brand piece, you know, and I think the reason that we're abstaining from the conversation here is I think it's important that the community thinks about the issue, but putting Smirnoff vodka on the list doesn't fix the problem. I don't know that putting Monarch vodka on the list fixes the problem.
Well,
We'll engage
that
in any-
remains to be seen, but the question is to say that there's something that is causing a problem that isn't on the list.
Right.
Is this process going to be flexible enough where we can, we all, I mean, part of this
I think what you're
would.
gonna build in a, you know, we talked about a semi-annual review process, annual review process, and that's the opportunity to do it. I think I also want to be careful though, you know, I certainly don't speak for Bridget, and we gotta be careful there too.
I
But
understand.
the fact that we're here, that we're even talking brands is evidence that we're interested in.
So far.
I think this is a red herring. I mean, it could be like playing whack-a-mole, you know? Okay, we outlaw Monarch vodka, but there's something else, so then that pops up. So
Okay,
we
look.
outlaw that, and then people.
John, we already have a list, but the list is so short, it's a
The
joke.
list makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, like as you say.
Take a look at
I
the
drink vodka sometimes.
existing
Smirnoff is good vodka. Pop-Off's not very good vodka. A Monarch that I found empty bottles all over the place is not on the list. So,
It should be.
I don't know how you refine the list and then people buy other stuff, you know? I think it's a red herring and not going to be productive, is my opinion.
That's why you go with, you look at the category. What category is it in? Is it in a below $10 vodka? Then, you know, I'm just pulling that out of my butt, whatever. Is it below $10 vodka and that's the thing that we don't want to have? Then let's get rid of the below $10 vodkas. Let's put it in a category. I mean, that's what you look at as a category. Don't get distracted by the brands, okay? Look at the category.
Linda, just the categories that we heard already, have them on the list. Size,
Yes.
alcohol content, price, and ease of portability. These are so far the factors that have been identified that might be workable criterion from which we can start to create control.
And I think that's where these came in from. I'm looking at the list for Bridget's store, and they have the names of the things that are already there. I mean, you know, a lot of 200 milliliter Jim Beam. These are the ones that fit that category.
And she can't sell them right now today.
Right now, today. She can't sell 375 milliliter of Calvert, Canadian Hunter, Canadian Mist, Pop-Off vodka, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
But meanwhile, downtown, they can't sell that size. So this is a review process. We need to take a look at this issue. And I'd like to, oh, I'm sorry.
Esther, do you want
So,
to say something?
so yeah, I guess what I've heard so far, and this is, you know, kind of not, what I've heard so far is kind of, you know, I've heard a discussion about brands and trying to codify brands, or do we make it a list of products and codify that, or both? And I guess something that I'm personally more interested in doing is, and this is where kind of the question of is it a static or dynamic process? I mean, I would be much more interested in seeing a process where the stores agree to not sell products that a committee that, you know, that the council identifies as these are the things that we're seeing as problems. And we start with the list, and it can be, we identify, you know, if it's not a dynamic process, then what we do now, 2 years from now, there's going to be totally different things, and we're going to have to go back and go through and change the law, basically. If we codify a process that allows us to be flexible, say, look, this isn't really working, that one, Smirnoff really isn't a problem, let's see what happens if we take it off the list. Oh, we're seeing lots of those bottles, let's get it out of the stores again. You know, I mean, to me, it seems like that's a better process than saying, don't sell these products, and,
No.
you know, and who knows what's coming down the pipe. Now, to your point, I agree. I mean, I know the experience in the past has been if you stop selling this, then the population is going to go for that. And the fact of the matter is, when there's a price point where, you know, we can price all the liquor in the store out of that range. When that happens, that's when, you know, you start seeing products in the store start to get consumed, stolen, lifted, or whatever, you You know, that's why they've got cough medicine behind bars or behind lock and key.